Welcome everyone to another episode of Retro Wrestling Reviews. Fredo Esparza here, and this week we look back at World Class Championship Wrestling's May 8th, 1982 show. But before we get to the review, be sure to click that subscribe button. We'll have more wrestling show reviews as well as the Lucha World podcast and other content available on this channel. This episode of World Class Championship Wrestling was taped at the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas, and aired on May 8th, 1982. As I said, I don't think I actually found the date for this event, but I would assume it was late April that it was taped. The show is hosted this week by Mark Lawrence. He is on commentary, and he gives a rundown of the lineup for this show. Captain Frank Dusek gets interviewed by Mark Lawrence and about his match against the Spoiler, but Dusek wants to talk about Wild Bill Irwin. He vows to find Irwin and take his Texas heavyweight title and his soul. Some very deep thoughts from Captain Frank Dusek this week. First match on the show has the Spoiler beating Captain Frank Dusek as the Spoiler lands an elbow on him and then covers him for the pin. This had a lot of good back and forth action with each getting in their share of offense throughout the match. Dusek starts to get more aggressive late in the match and shoves referee Bronco Lubick aside at one point while attacking the Spoiler. The Spoiler made a comeback and slammed Dusek and followed it with a forearm across the chest. The Spoiler tried to whip Dusek into the corner, but Dusek somehow knocks him down and covers him for the pin and even uses the ropes for added leverage. Referee taps his back and Dusek thinks he's won, but Lubick tells him that the Spoiler's foot was on the ropes, so that broke the count. That's when the Spoiler surprised Dusek with the elbow and went for the pin. After the match, Dusek is upset and starts shoving the referee. He throws a temper tantrum in the ring after the loss. The second match on the show saw Bugsy McGraw and King Kong Bundy with Armand Hussein beat Ken Mantell and Tom Boogaloo Shaft, with McGraw getting the pin over Shaft. Match was slower paced when Shaft was in the ring, while it sped up with Mantell in, but Mantell spent more time fighting as the underdog against the bigger King Kong Bundy. Late in the match, Shaft went with a headbutt on Bundy that knocked him to his knees. Shaft tried to tackle Bundy down, but Hussein tripped him. McGraw then came in and he and Bundy double-teamed Shaft to lead to McGraw getting the pin and win for the team. This again was a pretty short match. That was then followed by the Great Kabuki and Gary Hart being interviewed by Mark Lawrence. Gary Hart talked about the Magic Dragon coming to World Class and how he is the closest thing you will see to the Great Kabuki. He called the Magic Dragon the greatest martial artist of all time and said he is a man that Kabuki started training when he was a boy and that now he is a 26-year-old man who is the current All-Asia champion. He said the Magic Dragon has the most dangerous sleeper and uses his legs for this move. Hart said only Asians are cold-blooded enough to do what he wants to Fritz Von Erich, and that's take him out of wrestling. Third match on the show had Al Madril getting the win over Armand Hussein. After Hussein tried for a senton, but Madril moved out of the way and rolled him up for the pin. Hussein tried to attack Madril as he entered the ring, but the referee kept him away. Hussein then asked the referee to get Madril out of the ring so he could do his camel walk ceremony. Everyone got upset over this. Fans, Madril, everyone. Hussein then attacked Madril from behind right as the match was going to start. He controlled the early action by choking Madril. Crowd started to cheer for Madril. Hussein then continued his attack. Madril finally made a comeback when the referee tried to take Hussein off him. Punches were thrown by Madril, which pleased the fans. Hussein tossed Madril out of the ring. They continued to brawl outside the ring. Hussein then grabbed the camera cable to choke Madril. Referee was able to get Hussein off of Madril. They went back into the ring. Madril fired up and then threw some punches at Hussein. He missed a shoulder tackle at Hussein. Hussein then went for the senton, but Madril moved out of the way and then rolled him up for the pin. This was actually an enjoyable match. Kept pretty short, but still very enjoyable, especially for considering Hussein wasn't a particularly great wrestler or anything, but it was just a good TV match. They continued to brawl after the match until the referee was able to separate them. The other thing was that the crowd was really into these matches as well. The fourth match on the show was a 2-on-1 handicap match with Wild Bill Irwin beating both Richard Blood and Mike Bond. The ring announcer mentioned that the rules were that Irwin had to pin both his opponents during a 10-minute time period. Blood and Bond controlled the early action until Irwin was able to make a comeback against Mike Bond. Bond went for a sunset flip near fall on Irwin but couldn't get the pin, so he tagged in Blood. Irwin got a near fall on Blood. Irwin then whipped Blood into the ropes, but Blood caught Wild Bill with a knee lift and tagged Mike Bond. Irwin was able to catch Bond with a clothesline and got the pin on him. Richard Blood then ran into the ring and tried and got in a few forearms on Irwin, but then missed one that led to Irwin grabbing him for a body slam. Wild Bill Irwin then hit a running knee drop for the pin on Blood. The main event followed, and that was Kevin Von Erich versus the Great Kabuki, which ended in a double disqualification due to outside interference from both sides. Kevin was accompanied by his father Fritz Von Erich, and the Great Kabuki had Gary Hart in his corner. The crowd immediately started to chant, "We want Fritz," before the match started. Bell rang and both men charged at each other and started brawling. Punches, hair pulling, and choking on the mat by both until they got tied up under the ropes. They rolled to the outside and continued to brawl. Kevin threw a big punch at Kabuki and they both rolled back into the ring. The Great Kabuki tried to kick Fritz Von Erich. Kabuki choked Kevin, but he broke the hold and got him in a wrist lock and started to punish Kabuki's left arm. Kevin used his legs to work on Kabuki's left arm. Kabuki struggled trying to escape as Kevin kept a strong hold on Kabuki's left arm. Mark Lawrence mentioned that Kerry had to have surgery for an injury suffered at the hands of Kabuki. Kevin then caught Kabuki with a dropkick and whipped him into the corner, but Kabuki countered with a super kick. Kabuki then landed an elbow off the ropes on Kevin Von Erich. He followed that up with a nerve hold on Kevin's armpit. Crowd cheered on for Kevin Von Erich as he struggled in Kabuki's nerve hold. Gary Hart yelled at the referee to count faster. Fritz went over to motivate Kevin. Kevin Von Erich briefly escaped the hold, but Kabuki kicked him and got him again in a nerve hold. Referee warned both Fritz and Gary Hart. Kevin grabbed hold of Kabuki's chin and started to hit a few elbows into Kabuki's midsection, and then landed a drop kick. He whipped Kabuki into the ropes and knocked him down with a forearm. Kevin then went for the claw on Kabuki, but Kabuki was able to block him. Kevin Von Erich went for it again, and this time at Kabuki's midsection. Crowd cheered loudly and started a "Go, Kevin, go" chant. Kabuki escaped and raked Kevin Von Erich's eyes. Kabuki got in a few kicks at Kevin, but Kevin fought back. He got him with the iron claw on the forehead, but the referee broke the hold. Kevin missed a splash as Kabuki put his foot up in the air. I should mention the referee broke the hold because they were near the ropes, actually on the ropes. That was then followed by a thrust kick by Kabuki at Kevin Von Erich. Kabuki went after Kevin's eyes. Kevin Von Erich continued to fight back as he was bleeding from his nose. Drop kick at Kabuki. He slammed Kabuki's head into the mat a few times and then tossed him to the outside. Kevin Von Erich's face was now bleeding. They brawled outside the ring. Kabuki went after Kevin's face. Fritz and Hart argued outside the ring. Kevin attacked Gary Hart. Hart and Fritz are pulled apart by referee David Manning, but they continue to brawl. Kabuki attacked Kevin in the ring. Fritz Von Erich knocked down Gary Hart and continued to beat on him. Kevin Von Erich got Kabuki in the body scissors, but Kabuki broke out of the hold and chopped away at Kevin. King Kong Bundy then ran out and attacked Fritz Von Erich. Kevin Von Erich then headed to the outside and brawled with King Kong Bundy. Kevin brawled with both Bundy and Kabuki as the bell rang. Fritz Von Erich got back up and cleaned house. This was a wild finish. Mark Lawrence interviewed Fritz Von Erich and Kevin Von Erich after the match. Fritz talked about how this wasn't over. Kevin pointed to his face that was pretty badly bruised and said it doesn't hurt one bit, and said there is plenty more for Kabuki. Fritz said he still wanted more against Kabuki as well. This was an excellent episode of World Class Championship Wrestling. The main event was great, a wild brawl between Kevin Von Erich and the Great Kabuki that also involved Fritz, Gary Hart, and King Kong Bundy. This kept the Von Erichs versus H&H Limited feud hot as it continued throughout the year. The other match that was good on the show was the Spoiler versus Captain Frank Dusek. The other 3 matches were just okay, but the main event and the hot crowd made this a fun show to watch. I would definitely recommend y'all watch the main event from this show. The rest of the show you could probably live without watching, but the main event is definitely something worth watching. That's it for this review. Be sure to subscribe to the Retro Wrestling YouTube channel, and we will be back again soon with more reviews.